And now, but yeah, dude, what a game. Oh, also remind me when we're off camera.
Mhm.
Now, I want to talk to you about fantasy football stuff for next year.
Okay.
Nothing major, but
I mean, I have a few things. I also saw that the NFL has sort of been like, okay, yeah, we kind of fucked up kickoffs. So maybe they might do something about that. So I would definitely kind of just go revert to the return yardage
yeah,
if it looks like that's going to be a bigger part of the game.
yeah, I hope so. I mean, I think there's ways to do it where it's, because the whole point of it is you're trying to limit those high pressure contact injuries.
Hmm.
Like those are like those hits, those major hits on kickoffs and stuff are the ones where major damage can happen.
Hmm.
So I think they're trying, they're experimenting with how to make that safer, but also still entertaining. Because right now, like
Yeah, the kickoffs are the
touchbacks,
worst. It's always a touchback.
well, I would love to. I forget which league did it. I don't know if it was the XFL, the USFL, whatever. Who instead of doing an onside kick, you just have a 4th and 10 from the 25-yard line.
Interesting. Okay.
And so instead of because the onside kick never works.
Yeah, that has gotten way too difficult too. Yeah, that's like
It never
completely
works.
useless.
But you do like a 4th and 10, even a 4th and 15. Make it hard.
Yeah,
A 4th and 15, so it's one play. You got to go 15 yards.
sure. I would be okay with that.
I think that would be way more interesting because then you're putting your superstars
Yeah, and
all in their hands.
it would also like make some games more entertaining until the end. Like
Yeah.
just if you have to do that, like it's no longer going to be like, all right, well, there's 2 minutes and they're down 2 scores. It doesn't even really matter that they have the ball now. Like 1 in 1,000 chance that this team even
Yeah.
makes it interesting by the end. I
You get
think
a
that,
good
and like you
game.
have teams like that, like stay a little bit on their heels that way too. It might force you to actually throw make some really dumbass fucking play calls like the Eagles at the end of that game. But I mean, still, you run the ball on like first down and maybe take your shot on second.
My argument with that, because now we're talking birds for a second before we get into this podcast. My argument is if you're going to do that, I understand.
I'm okay with that play.
Yeah.
But you have to, they're like, first down, take 3 seconds off the clock and then lose possession. You got to do it smarter than that.
Also, you were in position basically. Like you had everything. You had 2 timeouts. All you needed was a field goal. You have one of the most clutch kickers in the NFL.
Absolutely. You got one of the best guys out there.
All you got to do is get 12 yards.
100%.
12 yards to get him a comfortable field goal.
I could not
10 yards to get him a big one.
I could not believe they tried pushing the ball downfield.
Well,
like,
and then the whole thing is
doing?
like,
take a shot over the middle. You have 2 timeouts.
The other argument is because Sirianni explained it. Mm-hmm. And he basically said, like, they were trying to win the game and they were trying to, and they thought they could draw a pass interference there. And I'm like, okay, sure. I understand that that's the risk you're taking. It's a calculated risk. You need to be telling your wide receiver that that's the plan. Don't just call the play, because AJ absolutely did not try to pull an offensive pass interference there. No, he didn't if that's the case, you got to sprint past it and then run backwards towards the ball.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the only way you get that call.
The problem. The coaching staff this year is the problem. It's the coaches. The coaches are the problem. And
well, I was watching it, and it's so funny because they're trying so hard to defend Brian Johnson.
Yeah.
Right. And like Sirianni's like, it's my scheme. It's on me. It's on me. The reason I have trouble believing that, which, like, sure, if he wants to take the blame, sure.
Yeah.
The first 15 plays of every game that I've seen are solid. The ones that are scripted beforehand, which are the ones that I would assume the head coach is helping put together. And then you hand off play calling to your OC, and then you suck.
They looked good on the first drive. They looked
They looked good in
really
the
good
first
on the
2
first.
drives against
Yeah,
the Niners. They looked good against the Cowboys.
and they were doing plays where I was like, "Oh, shit. I don't know if I've seen them do something like that before."
Yeah, and
And
that's
they were
with
mixing
Jalen
that in
Hurts
with.
being
Yeah,
ill.
right. It's like, why why are there only, like, 2 of those moments in the first quarter where I'm like, "Ooh, that's new. I don't think there's any tape on that one yet."
And
And
I
then
think
nothing else for the rest of the game. Like, what?
my theory is they have every NFL team that, like, this is well known, they have the script of the first, like,
Mhm,
15 plays or so, where it's like, we're going to establish our game plan like this. And they run them in that and they run through them. And then once they get through those, which is like, right around the end of the first drive, maybe midway through the second drive,
mhm.
and Brian
Depending on
Johnson
how
is
well
just,
things are going.
yeah. And Brian Johnson's just allowed to call the plays live at that point.
Terrible.
It's awful. It's the same
Terrible.
5 plays. It's like, whatever.
Doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Like, it's crazy too because is there a better wide receiver on the slant than AJ Brown?
It's almost guaranteed.
I mean, like,
He's just
why
a
don't
catch
you,
machine.
like, just and once in a while they'll pull it out and it's
Mhm.
always successful. Like, I've never seen them go for a slant where it wasn't successful because between Brown and Smith, like, one of them is gonna find their way open and is
Yeah.
gonna be there. Like, it's gonna be there. And why isn't
It's
that the play that you run at the end of that game when there's 15 seconds left? Run one of them, and if it's not quite
well,
close enough, you've taken your timeout, and there's still 7 seconds on the clock. You can run it again.
your heart's gonna break, Nick. Like the play where they went deep to AJ, where the whole the interception that ended the game. Kenny Gainwell wide open on the flat,
Of
no
course.
one in front of him,
Of course.
clearly gets the 12 yards.
Yeah.
Like, he easy gets it. And it was so obvious that,
Mhm. And you know what? Hurts has to take out some of that responsibility too. Like, he knows what the play
yeah.
call is, but he can see the field, and he's not an idiot.
And the
He
problem is,
understands, like, he could be making
yeah,
some of these plays instead of doing what
I
they're all hoping
completely
might work.
agree. I completely agree. The problem that I have is he takes all of it.
Yeah.
He goes to the press conference every time and is like, we got to be more committed. This starts with me. I'm the quarterback. I got to play better. I
And
got
I
to do
have
that. And
no
it's like,
problem with that. Like,
I know, but
I think from his end, that's totally respectable, and I like that he doesn't
yeah,
wanna throw any of his teammates or coaches under the bus. But, like, on the outside looking in, there should be a nice little balance there,
I also think,
especially
like, if
heavily on the coaching.
say it to the media, say it to us. I don't care.
Yeah.
I hope you're not saying it to them.
Sure, yeah.
Like, please,
Mhm.
I don't care what you tell me. I don't
Yeah.
care what you tell me. I like, I'm a fan of the sport, and I'm very much in the boat of, like, I do not care to know every little scoop of like, I don't need to see behind the curtain. Like,
Yep.
what you do behind the scenes is you. Like,
100%.
I don't need to see all the drama on how, like, a PlayStation game is made. I just want to play a fun game. And I want to see people's work done well. And I'm the
Yeah.
same way with this. Like, I want to see the on-field effort. So, like, if Hertz comes out and says all that in the media and then goes in and punches Brian Johnson in the face and says, "Call a better game next time," like,
Yeah.
I'm all for it. Like,
Mhm.
do what you got to do behind the scenes and keep
Yeah.
the calmness.
Right. Totally.
I'm
Alright.
really
Let's
procrastinating this episode.
yeah, let's just do it. Let's
I
it'll you
know.
know what? It'll be fun.
It'll be
It
fun.
always is.
All right. You better be right.
I'm
All
trying.
right. I'm ready.
Alright. Well, in that case, 3, 2, 1.
And I would do anything for love. I would do anything for love. but I won't podcast.
There it is. What we were all waiting for. From the moment you started, I knew where it was going.
Although lyrically, I just said I won't podcast, so I guess I could.
See ya.
I guess I'm out of here. Nick's solo episode.
Adios. Yeah, that's what I've always wanted to do.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Totem Talks. This is season 7, episode 2. We are brand new into our 7th season, hanging out with you, talking music, talking tunes.
That's right.
Continuing our ever daunting quest to find the greatest musical artist of all time.
Didn't find him this week. We'll try.
Hey, whoa! Spoiler alert! Come on.
The scores aren't in. The scores aren't in.
The scores aren't in. We may have found the greatest musical artist of all time.
You're right.
Before we talk about the artists that we're covering today, I just want to thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out. Always a blast to see each and every one of you, virtually, of course, and really metaphysically, since most of you are audio listeners.
Sure.
Although you could be a video watcher.
Many of you are poltergeists as well. On the metaphysical angle.
That's a great point. But if you're interested in seeing us discuss this as well as many other things before, during, and after the recorded episode, you can find us on Twitch, on Kick, on YouTube, on really anything. You can look up Totem Podcast Network. You can see my camera being completely glitched out today. I look like I'm a specter, just like dashing back and forth across the screen at times.
You are.
I am a specter. I am. But it's a ton of fun. We hope you join us. If you're interested in maybe like dipping your toes in the video, but don't feel like making time on mostly Thursdays, mostly in between 4:30 and 5:30.
Yeah.
You know, that's our goal. Our goal is correct. Thursdays. Sometimes life happens.
That's right.
But you can find us on YouTube. If you look up the Totem Podcast Network on YouTube, there are archived videos of our episodes. So you can you can view them and you can see the whole thing unedited from beginning to end. They are
it's the best way to view it.
Streams of nonsense, and then there's a little bit of music mixed in.
That's right.
Always a fun time. Now, Nick, speaking of streams of utter nonsense,
yes,
who are we covering today?
Well, I'd love to let you know that we are starting things off with Korn today, and then our main course will be meatloaf.
Wow. Breakfast of Champions.
Yeah, you could say that. Although it would be an insult to the novel.
That's a great point. Yeah, so I guess, you know what? It's time. I won't get into anything else. Let's talk about Korn. So Korn is an American new metal band from Bakersfield, California. They were formed in 1993, and they were still active today, as of the recording of this episode. We covered 3 albums. We started with the eponymous debut, Korn. Thank you very much. Came out in 1994. We followed that up with Follow the Leader from 1998. And then we had a Requiem. We closed it out with Requiem from 2022.
And it's my turn to talk first.
It is. I'm so excited for you.
So I would love to give a little bit of background on Korn. Not Korn the band, Korn the album.
Okay, or not the food?
I will not be discussing the food at any time.
Okay, understood.
It might come up. I don't know.
It might come up. You can't limit yourself.
Exactly. You know what? I walk it all back. But the album is essentially the album that's credited with establishing new metal as a genre. In Rolling Stone, it was called the most important metal record of the last 20 years. That was in 2014. It's listed at number 30 on Rolling Stone's top 100 metal albums of all time. Loudwire named it the best new metal album of all time in 2018. And I will even say this. On the album, there is sufficient evidence that particularly the drummer, that they're talented musicians. And I wanted to die every moment of it. It was horrible to hear.
You mean for every 65 minutes? For every one of those 65 minutes?
It was not a single pleasant one.
Okay.
That's where I said, like, look, it's important, and a lot of people like it, and I don't, and it wasn't good to listen to. And if this is the best that new metal can do, I mean, here's the thing: we've never listened to a new metal album on this podcast and thought it wasn't terrible. I guess this might be the best that new metal has,
No,
but it is just the worst genre of music. Like,
Nick,
it's horrible.
I listen. There's no way you can like. There's no way. This is not the best new metal can be, for one
Depends,
very
I guess.
specific reason,
I
and
guess it
it's that
depends.
Hybrid Theory by
Hybrid
Linkin
Theory,
Park
yeah,
exists.
yeah,
Like I don't. I there are holes in Hybrid Theory, and we talked
sure,
about them on
yeah,
our episode.
but nothing
But
like this.
Hybrid Theory,
This album was a hole out of which I wanted to crawl into and die.
yeah. If Hybrid Theory is the Mona Lisa of new metal, this is a smeared canvas full of dog shit. That is the comparison that I have.
That's pretty good.
Here's what I'll say. Lyrically, I understand what they were doing. They were trying to evoke anger over like injustice in the world. There are themes of like child abuse, drug abuse, bullying, and how wrong they are, but like almost told by the bullies and the abusers in a way to like evoke anger. I get it. I understand. That's the best compliment I can give, is that I understand.
Sure.
At no point on the album, at no point in any song ever did they approach singing.
No.
It was almost more of like a slam poetry album, where the slam was like a rock people's elbow directly to your solar plexus. And then it was 65 minutes long.
Yeah, that wasn't.
It just
that wasn't
wouldn't. Great. It wouldn't end. And you know what the best part about it for me was? Like, honestly, the most jarring thing that ever happened to me. You know, I've been listening to a lot of Billy Joel recently.
Sure, yeah.
I've been trying to get through his discography in order as I go. After the last song, Uptown Girl came on, and I was like,
what?
I literally was like, my brain froze for a good 10 seconds with how different they were. This album is just so brutal to listen to. I mean, it's just brutal. That's really the best I can say.
That's fair.
It's brutal to listen to. The lyrics are visceral and bad. There's like the vulgarity. Like, I don't mind bad language, but like
what I don't
it
like
goes over
is
the top.
Like shock jocks. You know
That's
what I mean?
yeah.
Like, I don't really give a shit what language you use at all, as long as like it effectively gets your point across and does so in a way that I think feels well written. And just like saying crazy shit for the sake of it being crazy doesn't really feel like it works artistically at all for anyone who does it in music or comedy or talk radio or anything.
I agree. I feel like in comedy there's one comedian that I've ever seen that makes it funny, and his name is Anthony Jeselnik. It's the only one. Everyone else, he's like the exception, not the rule.
He's got that Stephen Wright deadpan thing going on at the same time, though, which is really nice because Stephen Wright's great.
Yes, agree on that. We agree on that. Yeah. All right, I'm just going to move on to Follow the Leader. And I'm going to say this album is better. It's a better album overall. They attempt at times singing. Yes, it's not great, but they do try to sing. It's not just weird like talking. This album feels more new metal because it includes more rap.
Yeah.
Which I equate to new metal a little more.
Sure.
Like I said, that first album, I have trouble even calling it new metal.
Yeah,
it just feels like weird metal with spoken word poems over top.
Which I guess you can see like the line.
But here's the problem. I see the line from Korn's debut album exists. And then this album feels like Korn listened to Hybrid Theory and went, oh, we should have rapping. Oh, what we're doing and then rapping makes a lot more sense. Great. Okay. Freak on a Leash is, I think, their big song. It's the one that I
It is the
knew.
one that's most famous, although I did not know it.
Okay,
I
I
knew
knew
the
Freak on a
name of
Leash.
it, but I did not know the music of it.
Sure, that makes sense. I don't know why I knew it. I did know it, and I recognized the title and then the song.
Mhm.
So I certainly never listened to Korn,
No,
but
nor will
this
I again.
album is better. I will say it's bad still.
Uh-huh.
Great call on track 5 is my favorite track, maybe of Korn's entire discography, because they actually had the pun of children of the
Yeah,
Corn, and they had Ice Cube, who is a good rapper.
sure.
If
Someone who can do that.
Yeah, someone who can rap. Definitely better than Fred Durst being on this album.
Oh my
If
god.
that's your 6 degrees of TotemTalks, sorry to spoil it,
No,
but
no,
oh
I
my
have a take
god.
on it though.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Also, like, here's the thing, like, you talked about the shock jockiness of the first album. This album is maybe slightly less, but there's a song on here called Cameltosis.
Yeah, come on.
Like, what are we doing? And I feel like that's what I'm gonna like. I think us as critics of music at this point
Mhm.
have made like a good kind of groove of, you kind of know what music we're into and what music we're not,
Mhm.
but we try very hard when it's a
For sure.
genre we don't like to still judge it on its merits.
Yeah.
This is a genre I don't like, and I don't think it's being done well.
Yeah, I
That's my
agree with
thing.
that.
Like, I don't think it's being done well here.
Yeah,
I don't think the metal part fits nearly as well with the rapping and the half singing here as other new metal albums we've listened to.
sure. Yeah, and the when you said that, it reminded me, because we kind of grew up in the time during which corn was popular. And the only kind of people who I can remember being like the kind of people who would wear corn t-shirts and this and that were like boys in seventh grade.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much who the writing is for. Because if you're any older than seventh grade, when you start to hear it, it's probably not going to resonate with you too much.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's not great. And look, I didn't enjoy it. Um, I didn't enjoy it, but what I put here in terms of the vocals was I could understand some of the words this time, which I did
That is
not on the
true.
first album at all.
That is true.
Um,
See, when I have a chance, when I'm doing more of an active listen,
yeah,
I'll just have my phone on and the lyrics will play like along
sure.
with the track. So I'll get to like
Yeah.
glance at stuff.
And that makes a big difference because they are hard to understand otherwise. But
Yes.
again, I did feel like it was an improvement for the first half of the album, at least. I felt like they at least were trying to like have a message. Like there was at least an idea of what the band wanted to be in here,
Yeah.
other than like let's just try to be popular. And then the Fred Durst song happened. And let me tell you, it was the only song in Korn's entire discography that was able to keep my attention in the same way watching like a burning building would keep my attention. It was
Yeah.
just the worst thing I've ever heard. I mean,
It legitimately made me like want other corn songs. I was like, no, 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 let's go
no,
back
no,
to
no,
what we were
yeah,
doing.
exactly. I mean, it was so bad. The Fred Durst can't rap. I mean, he was terrible.
Especially not after Ice Cube.
Exactly. Jonathan
Don't
Davis
put
was
him after Ice
terrible.
Cube.
Don't yeah, I
At
mean,
least let him go first.
I agree. It was all both of them. What they it was like literally that like seventh grade boys yell like who hate each other getting into a fight
Mhm.
was the dialogue of that rap. Like it was just the most childish, stupid bullshit. Like it was so bad. I cannot believe that an adult human wrote it. It was pathetic.
Yeah.
And everything after that, like, it made it worse for me. Like, I don't know if the second half of the album was objectively way worse than the first half,
Well, the second
but
half of the album did contain Cameltosis.
that's yeah, exactly. I basically, all I could remember after was a whole bunch of screaming about quote unquote "fucking bullshit." Um, And the other thing that I started to realize at this point was like, maybe we'll just never get a guitar solo. So, okay. Like, just give me anything to listen for, please.
Yeah.
And so then we went into Requiem, and this was my favorite album because it was the shortest, and for no other reason than that it was the shortest album. The album cover was horrifying. It is because it's one of those new moving album covers that they do now.
Hmm.
And it's like a hand squeezing the head of a baby doll and like just destroying it. Like, all right, great, thank you.
Yeah, you know, why
Um,
not?
but I mean, here's the positive. I guess there were actual melodies being sung, even if they were very simple and had no real range to them whatsoever. This was like at least an attempt at singing. But otherwise, it was 30 minutes of the same unlistenable corn that I hated on the first two albums, and I hated it again.
Yeah, so it's been 28 years, and what I've learned is you can go from 0 to some singing in
Yeah,
28 years.
some.
That's pretty impressive.
It's great.
What I really was disappointed in is I objectively thought the first song for what we've been listening to was really
Mhm.
good.
Sure.
The first song had like actually decent melodic lyrics, like
Mhm.
melodic singing. It wasn't incredible, but it was a melody. It was an
Yeah, it
actual
was
lyrical
something was
melody
happening.
throughout the song. I thought that the playing complemented it really well, and I was actually excited because 1998 to 2022 was a long time.
Yeah.
And like that first track played, and I'm like, oh, maybe they've really grown up in the interim. Because I kind of haven't heard much about Corn really in a long time. So I thought
Sure.
maybe like, oh, if they kind of shifted their gear a little bit, and maybe got a little bit out of the mainstream because of that, I might like this album more. And then it went right back to where it was with albeit singing, but still just not good. Maybe a
Not
little
good.
less shock jockey, as we mentioned, maybe a little
Sure.
less of that again. I think maybe as they're getting older, they're realizing like, oh, it's less fun to do that.
Yeah.
But the lyrics aren't good, and the melody, the singing isn't good, and the playing is maybe good, but it never shows itself off enough.
Yeah.
Like you're not showing me you're good at what you're doing. You're showing me like you can physically play an instrument.
Yeah, I definitely was disappointed in the guitars by the end of this. I was
Yeah.
hoping to get, like, not that they're bad and not that they didn't have like some solid riffs written in
Mhm.
there. I was just hoping that they would be able to do something other than riffs and power chords, and I didn't feel like I got much of that.
I couldn't agree more. Nick, tell me all about corn.
Okay, well, I would love to. Here's what makes them unique. um, so I don't know if I noticed this a single time on the three albums that we listened to, and it could be because I was so zoned out of the music because I hated it so much.
Sure.
But their lead singer also plays the bagpipes. He is a
Definitely
bagpipist.
not on these albums.
I mean, I d it's possible that they're in there somewhere, that I didn't hear, maybe real low in the mix, but he plays the bagpipes.
Really low in the
In fact,
mix.
and Fred Durst makes fun of him for it in the diss battle song, on Follow the Leader.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and also, here's the other thing about their lead singer, Jonathan Davis. In 2006, their original drummer left, and for 2 years, he was just their drummer. So from 2006 to 2008, after the band had been releasing albums for 12 years, he just became the drummer for a short time before turning it back over to somebody new.
Okay, interesting.
Very rare that something like that happens, and just, like,
I'll say.
over a decade into the band's career, the singer's just like, "Oh, yeah, I'll just take over on drums for a
I'll
little
just do
while
it.
now.
What is it? We need it done. I'll just do
No
it.
big deal."
Well, if
Um,
Mason never leaves, I got you.
yeah, thank you. Okay, but I will
Oh
say
man.
this, also related to drumming, when he was finished in 2008, because they brought their new guy in, Ray Luzier, uh, he actually started his career playing as the drummer for David Lee Roth, who we know
Okay.
from Van Halen.
Yes, we do.
So there's my 6 degrees. My highlight, I had a little bit of difficulty with. I mean, there were because there are a few things and not necessarily one of them sticks out. as the
Sure.
best. So it could be the album Followed Leader because it was their most successful record. It went 5 times platinum in the United States. They
Yeah.
did have good consistent efforts though. They had multiple platinums, double platinums, a triple platinum. So, that's a possibility. You also have their 2 Grammys that they won as a potential highlight. Or you could go with their first album in the sense that it is what started a movement. And even if it was one of the worst movements in the history of music, it did in fact start a movement that really is one of the main identities of the time. Like from the mid 90s to the early 2000s, new metal is definitely one of the things that defined culture, whether we like it or not. It was
No,
a
I
pretty big
couldn't
deal.
agree more. I
Um,
could not agree more.
yeah.
It definitely feels like that. I feel like, you know, the album Korn walked so Hybrid Theory could run,
Mhm.
and I definitely don't even like Hybrid. That's crazy. I feel like listening to Korn made me retroactively like
Linkin Park more?
Hybrid Theory more and all
Sure.
of Linkin Park more.
Yeah.
Well, first off, Chester Bennington was
He
a
could, yeah.
better singer and
Oh, he's
songwriter than
really
anyone
good.
in Korn. So that's part of it, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, keep
For
going,
sure.
keep going.
All right, so a lot of my lowlights kind of tied in with meanest and nicest things, strangely
Oh,
enough.
sure,
It's
sure.
in a weird way. So I'm sure there will be some interesting parallels when we get to our next act. But in the year 2005, now I would like to make clear that the people who are in this band have very strange names. Um,
Okay.
Besides the lead singer, who is Jonathan Davis, and the newest drummer, who is Ray Luzier, the other band members are Monkey, Head, and Fieldy. Um,
Okay, yeah, no, so where's the weird names?
uh, Nowhere. So I mean, they have other names, but those are the nicknames. They're
Yeah.
Monkey, Head, and Fieldy. So Head in 2005, he found the Lord, and he left the band, claiming that they only really cared about the money, and there was like a not so amicable breakup there for a time.
I
From
have to before
2005 to 2012.
I have to stop you right here. I just realized that you were referring to 3 people.
Oh
I
yeah, yeah,
thought
yeah.
you were referring to 2 people, one of whose names was Fieldy and one of whose names was
Monkey
Monkeyhead.
Head? No, 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 no.
It's
There's
Monkey,
Monkey and Head.
there's Head, and
Correct.
there's Field. Okay, I'm with you
Yes.
now.
Okay. Thank goodness. Okay, so Fieldy, he found the Lord. He found Jesus. He left the band for 7 years. Made
Okay.
some nasty accusations about what they wanted. They do eventually resolve it and get back together in 2012. So
Okay.
during uh, Head's time being like a Jesus person instead of being in a band,
Sure, sure.
um, this will go into the nicest thing I think. Part of the reason maybe his motivation is to get back with the band and get back involved. He actually like fully went broke during the time he
Uh,
was out of the band, and that was partially, not entirely, but partially at least, due to his acts of philanthropy that he was doing. He was like building homes in India and things like that, I
okay.
believe. So, uh, good for him in that he spent so much of he was thoughtless in his spending of his money on others. He ended up having to get like a royalties check from earlier Korn albums as like early to like save him and pull him out of major trouble, but he's back in the group.
Oh,
So here's the thing. Also, right now, or since 2021, Fieldy has also been on hiatus from the band after finding Jesus.
no
A
way.
second guy found Jesus and left the band.
Okay, okay.
So I guess like Corn's it's their kryptonite is
Uh,
Jesus.
okay, so I have to say this. As you're mentioning these people to me,
Mhm.
I'm just like pulling up their Wikipedia page, and
Oh boy.
I can't tell if I recognize what all of the members of Korn look like, or if they just look so generic to what I would imagine they
Oh
look
yeah.
like that I'm having like recognition. Like I recognized Head. I've never heard of him before in my life.
Yeah.
Or Fieldy. But when I pull up Fieldy's Wikipedia page,
It
I'm
just
like, why
feels
do I
like
know
corn.
you?
Yeah. Yeah,
Maybe it's
that's
also
fair.
because they kind of look the same.
Right.
Maybe I saw one person from Corn, and if you like, because even let me look at Monkey. Let me pull
Yeah,
up
and I
Monkey.
feel like the dreadlocks thing,
How does Monkey and Head are the same person?
they both do have dreadlocks.
They look, but their faces look the same too. It's not just the
Yeah,
dreadlocks.
and the beards and all the other things going on. That's them.
Yeah, I
All right.
guess. Okay. You
So
know what? I will say, objectively, the mic stand that the dude using in his Wikipedia picture is pretty cool and unique looking.
it is very interesting looking.
There is my compliment for Corn.
That's nice. So here's the other part of this. I'm going to go back to Head now.
Back to Head. Okay, I'm with you.
Okay, here's the other thing about him finding Jesus.
Mhm.
It has led him to have certain acquaintances and to pal around with certain folks that I would argue are pretty bad people. Like, for instance, the theocratic lunatic Mike Huckabee. He literally not only appears on his show, but like had Huckabee play bass and they like jammed on some corn songs together and stuff. And
Okay.
like, I'm not. The company you keep is going to be a little indicative to me of what kind of person you are. And if you're the kind of person who would get an invitation from Mike Huckabee and not immediately say, "You're a fucking lunatic and I want nothing to do with you," then you're not the kind of person that I would want to associate with. And this makes sense because in I think it was 2014, when Jonathan Davis, the singer, who like has expressed, I guess, a variety of some political opinions, some of which I don't entirely dismiss, and others of which are absolutely bonkers. Um,
Okay.
but
Okay.
he basically like kind of came out and said Obama was an Illuminati conspiracy. Uh, just like he came out of nowhere and he was put in place by the Illuminati to like take all
Unrelated.
of your funds and stuff.
Unrelated. I know for a fact that Jonathan Davis has a history of excessive methamphetamine use.
Okay.
So just just a weird
I mean,
fact I just wanted to throw out totally
probably
randomly.
unrelated.
Probably I just wanted to say it.
Yeah, so these guys I think they're a little bit bonkers is what I'm trying to get at.
Okay, understood.
And that's corn, everybody.
That's Corn.
So
Yes,
it's
I
time for
managed to compliment Corn
that
at
was
least once
great.
with the mic stand.
I
My
appreciate
second
that.
compliment to Corn is butter.
Yeah, oh for sure. And honestly, I like a little pepper as well
Little
because
pepper, yes.
I like a little pepper.
Have
Some
you
people put
had
salt. I'm
have
not
you
a big
had
salt
street
guy.
corn?
I love street corn. Love
Like,
it.
it's so good.
Oh, it's so good.
Let's talk
Okay,
about that corn
meatloaf.
for a while. All right, meatloaf.
All right, you know what time it is.
Yeah, I'm desperately waiting for you to pee. Oh man, corn, corn, corn. It certainly got the juice. Oh, hello, Megan. I didn't even see you. I didn't even look at the comment thing. We were too busy ragging on corn. You know, I hope that the NSA agent who has to look at my Google right there and sees Meatloaf Philanthropy. I hope he doesn't think it's the artist. I hope he thinks I'm really trying to be charitable for Meatloaf, like the food. Are you here or are you in the realm right now? Or both? Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
Hello, Megan.
Both. That's fair.
Okay.
Corn.
What did I miss?
Oh, nothing. We were just chatting for a bit, just getting my. I said that I hope the NSA agent who has to look at my Google search is chuckled by the fact that I looked up meatloaf philanthropy, and I hope he sees that for what it is.
Meatloaf
The guy really
philanthropy.
wants to give away meatloaf. Just desperate to give meatloaf to charities.
That's interesting because my mind did not immediately go to like donating meatloaf as a philanthropic act. My brain went to like just meatloaf, the inanimate object, in some way raising money or giving from its vast riches to various charities.
Also true. I think both could be true.
They can.
Meatloaf itself is donating, and we are donating meatloaf.
Okay. I could see how you could even construe the very same scenario uh, to put it that both of those
Sounds
ways
like a Mr.
semantically.
Beast video. Don't tempt him. He'll do it. I gave away 40 miles of meatloaf to a country. I covered a country entirely in meatloaf. And it'll get 2 billion views. Nick, I don't know how to tell you this.
All right, then you don't have
I'm ready.
Okay.
Is that
Well, then here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Michael Lee Addy, born Marvin Lee Addy, also known as Meatloaf, was an American singer and actor who was active from 1968 until his death in 2022. We covered 3 albums. We covered Bat Out of Hell, which came out in 1977. Then we followed that up with Bat Out of Hell 2, which came out in 1993. And then, wait for it, Braver Than We Are, which came out in 2016. Don't worry, Nick. I think you'll feel a little better. I have comments and stuff that'll make you feel better.
That's what I need to hear.
So I'll get it started with Bat Out of Hell. Now, here's the thing. This album, more than any other album that we listened to today, is an album I knew.
Yeah.
I knew this whole album, and I know this album, and I really enjoy this album. And there's really one reason I enjoy this album. And I'm curious if you could think of the exact reason I like this album. You've been my best friend for however many years.
Okay. I wonder if the reason that you like this album so much is the same knock that I have on it, essentially.
Probably.
It just should have been a musical. It just should have been a musical.
Well, Nick, would you be surprised to know that it was a musical?
I wouldn't at all. I didn't know, but I wouldn't at all be surprised.
This album was composed by longtime collaborator with Meatloaf and other artists, Jim Steinman. And it was developed from an original musical called Neverland, which was a like rock opera version of Peter Pan.
Okay.
That then they just went, let's just make it Meatloaf's debut EP. And when you look at it through that context, it makes perfect sense. This album is a musical soundtrack just sung by 1 to 3 people.
Right. Yeah.
And if you look at it like that, it's really good. The production quality is really strong. I think you're getting like a really good mix of songs. Meatloaf maybe isn't the strongest singer yet. His voice improves, but he's solid all the way through.
Well, it doesn't keep improving.
You're getting what his real claim to fame is, though. You're getting the width of his range. Here. He's definitely got a large breadth of his voice. It just maybe isn't the most controlled yet.
Yeah.
But I'll say for the most part, this is an enjoyable album. I think you're getting maybe a little bit of like weirdness at times. But that's why I said looking at it through the musical theater lens makes a lot of that stuff a little more palatable, I'll say. And it's I'm surprised you have such a knock on it, because this album feels like almost proggy to me in terms of its theatrical qualities and like intricate music going around behind it. Jim Steinman
Oh, he
is
does an excellent job with
phenomenal.
composition,
Yeah.
for sure. And I think overall too, honestly, on this record, the musicians in the background, like I felt like I got a lot more from them than what I got from Korn. Like Todd Rundgren, Kasim Sultan, who we've probably heard in like at least 2 or 3 other groups. Like this, this is a band that is doing a really great job of bringing across that theatrical aspect and still being like excellent rock musicians.
Yes.
So I really,
Exactly.
and honestly, this is kind of a theme here. Like, I kind of like the instrumentals more than I like the lyrics. Like, I would
Yes.
probably like every Meatloaf album better if there was no Meatloaf on it,
And that's
which
I completely
tracks for
understand.
me.
I
Um,
get it.
and here's the only other thing I'll say that kind of annoys me about this record, and I almost like get like defensive and upset. It's the 4th best selling album of all time, and it
Uh-huh.
is nowhere near the 4th best album of all time. Like I almost just look at it and get frustrated. Like there are so many albums better than this album, and I'm a little bit upset that it's getting all this credit.
Here's what I love about this album. Okay, before we move on. And this isn't really unique. I wouldn't use this as my unique thing for Meatloaf, because it's really not Meatloaf related. This album was based on the musical Neverland,
Mhm.
a like hard rock opera version of Peter Pan.
Fascinating.
They turned a musical into an album, a rock album, like a prog rock, hard rockish pop album
Mhm.
for Meatloaf. And then in 2017, they turned the album Bat Out of Hell into a musical.
It's crazy it took that long.
But like, can you believe that like it went from musical to rock
Yeah.
album to
Back.
completely different musical?
Yeah. Go figure.
It's pretty impressive. I'll give them
Yeah.
that.
But I mean,
So
overall, I was gonna say the album does like it has a unique niche in music, and it does it well.
yeah,
It does it well, and I enjoyed listening to the album. It's just like I knew a bunch of the songs. I didn't know every song, but I knew a bunch of the songs. By the way, the spoken word intro for "You Took the Words Right Out of My Mouth." We don't need that. Get rid of that entirely, please.
that
Like
is definitely part of the theater of it.
it's
I get
yeah,
it.
it's not great.
Are you hungry?
But like,
Will you give me your hunger? Will
stop,
you love me?
stop. I but even having known all these songs, I've never sought out listening to the record. Like I could sing along to every word of that one and Paradise by the Dashboard Light and 2 out of 3 Ain't Bad. But I've still never even bothered seeking out the album or ever really intentionally listened to those songs. And even though I
Sure.
enjoy them in the moment for doing it, or if we were out somewhere and the song came on, I could enjoy it and sing along. I've never sought it out before. I'm not going to seek it out again. Like it doesn't affect me in that much of a way that I would want to listen to it again on purpose.
Before you move on,
Sure.
now that you've had a fresh listen to it this week,
Mhm.
can you agree with me that you and I and Low Totem would fucking kill Paradise by the
I don't
Dashboard Light?
know. I
It
have
would
a
be
lot of hesitations
so
about
it would be
instrumentation.
so fun. Oh, definitely. And granted, I I think upon re-listening to it fresh, I underestimate the difficulty of that piano, especially while you'd be
Mhm.
singing.
Yeah.
I get that.
Especially and there are guitar parts that are, like, hard to ignore in that song.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but anyway.
I think we could do a crazy fun version of
It
Paradise
could
by
be
the
fun.
Dashboard Light,
It
though.
could be fun.
We could figure out which one of us would be Meatloaf and which one of us would be the women.
You and me
Yeah,
in that
probably.
order.
But it'd be
Okay.
so funny.
So here's the thing, Bad Out of Hell 2.
Yeah.
The very first song on it, I Would Do Anything for Love, is the only song not on Bad Out of Hell that I have ever heard or that anyone else has ever heard. That's
That's
my
fair.
hottest. Like, very intentionally went and looked through his entire discography. I'm like, nope, I knew 3 songs on the first album, and I know this song, and I've never heard a single other song. And that's fine. And I'm probably, again, not going to seek him out. And this album was also, I mean, not as good as the first one, but it was fine. Like the musical intro for I Would Do Anything, like the music for I Would Do Anything for Love is incredible. I would like the song better without his vocals, and this album is also way too long. It's 75 minutes, and if it was like
75 minutes.
if it was like a 50-minute to an hour long instrumental album, I would listen to it all the time.
It's why you heard it here first. Nick McLaughlin taking an album that literally has the phrase hard rock and progressive rock in the genres and saying it's too long.
Yeah, it could have been cut back, and honestly, a lot of it is the vocals. Here's what I found out this week. I like Jim Steinman, and I don't like Meatloaf. Or you know what? I like Jim Steinman as a composer, and I don't like Jim Steinman as a lyricist or as a melody writer. Like, if he wrote entirely instrumental stuff, I would really dig it, and I just don't like the theater shtick at this point, especially because just as the nature of the week goes on and how long all of our albums were this week, I listened to them in a row.
Yeah.
And my God, was I over the theater shtick. I'm like, take me out downtown to go see Bad Out of Hell 2 as a show, and I'm sure I would have a great time.
Yeah.
But I am not interested in listening to this album at all. And I don't need the skits that are attached to the songs. I was literally laughing out loud to some of the lyrics too. Objects in the rearview mirror may appear closer than they are. So poorly written. Like, the lyrics are not good.
The lyrics struggle at times.
Yeah.
But they always kind of do. I mean, his lyrics are always a little clunky. I mean, even on his good songs.
Mm-hmm.
Like even on his good songs, like, I don't know, but regardless,
not a fan of the lyrics.
Here's my take on this. If you're somebody who really digs the first album for the album and not for the singles, but for the album, this will be an enjoyable album to you.
Oh, for
I
sure.
enjoyed myself listening to it. I do agree it's nowhere near as strong as the first album.
And to be clear, I didn't even dislike the album.
Yeah.
I have a lot of issues with it, but it was pleasant enough to. Excuse
100%.
me.
100%. I agree. I also, like, after listening to this album, I think I can officially say that, shockingly, which is, it's not something I expected in the Rocky Horror Picture Show. That's where he peaked.
Interesting.
So,
only seen it once, and it was a long.
I wasn't expecting it. Yeah, well, he is Eddie in that, and he kills it. He crushes.
I can only vaguely remember Tim Curry.
That's fair. And honestly, the most memorable part by far. But this album is good. I feel like you don't really get sequels in the musical theater world.
Sure.
Very often, if really not ever really. Mm-hmm. I can think of a couple examples.
I almost would say the closest equivalent we've ever discussed on the show is Welcome to My Nightmare and Welcome to My Nightmare by Alice Cooper.
Yeah. That's fair. So I think they kind of suffer from the same thing where it's like it doesn't quite live up to the original, but like it's in the same vein.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. I have no real complaints. I enjoyed listening to it. I think the music behind it is stronger than the sum of its parts by far. I think Jim Steinman is an excellent composer.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Like that's where I'm coming out of this. I'm coming out of this saying, like, is Jim Steinman the unsung hero of Meatloaf?
Yes.
Yes, and that's the answer is yes,
Meatloaf
but
is the negative here.
it wasn't a question that I had going into
Yeah.
this. And I think that's good. Now, before I take us into Braver Than We Are, I'm gonna make a quick pit stop
At Bad Out of Hell 3.
in Bat Out of Hell 3, The
Which is
Monster is
even
Loose.
longer.
Yes, it's 77 minutes. Now, here's the controversy around Bat Out of Hell 3.
Okay.
Jim Steinman was not involved really with this album.
Really? I'm looking right now. He wrote most of the songs.
Yeah, so what happened was Jim Steinman sued Meatloaf about the name because he actually got a trademark for the phrase "Bad Out of Hell" in an attempt to stop this album from coming out as a Bad Out of Hell album.
Interesting.
And was like, and they ended up using old songs that Steinman had written for various other projects to like have him be included on the album.
Okay.
But he wasn't involved in like composing this as an album.
Interesting.
And that is like an interesting take. So it's technically the third in the Bat Out of Hell series.
Okay.
But it's not really, because Jim Steinman is the lifeblood of the Bat Out of Hell series. And now I'll take us to Braver Than We Are.
Okay.
Which is back. Jim Steinman is back. He's composing all of these. And the producer, Paul Crook, he commented, like, although there has been Bat 1, Bat 2, and Bat 3, I really feel like this is Bat 3. Like, this is Jim Steinman back writing with the same theories, writing with the same thoughts and themes as he was with Bat 1 and 2. And so this is what is kind of considered the spiritual, like, third sequel to the Bat Out of Hell series.
Okie dokie then.
So we really did kind of get all three Bat Out of Hells, according to the Meatloaf people.
Okay.
And here's where I'm going to say some stuff.
I'm sure.
Jim Steinman is a very good composer. The music sounds excellent. I really liked almost every vocalist on this album. I mean, they brought in Ellen Foley and Carla DeVito, who are they were the people who sang Paradise by the Dashboard Light with him, I believe.
Okay.
One sang it with him live on tour, one sang it with him on the album.
Gotcha.
Really nice to have them in here. They also had Stacey Michelle, who did a really good job on 2 songs. Clan Coe came in, really good version, really good vocals in Skull of Your Country.
I think that's an I, not an L.
Cyan, I can't
even Sean.
Oh, it might be Sean.
That's my guess.
That's probably much better. And that if that is Sean, Coe is definitely not how you pronounce that last name either.
Yeah, fair enough.
So that vocalist, amazing, does a wonderful job. One vocalist can't fucking sing anymore, and it's Meatloaf. Oh my God. Cooked. Absolutely cooked. I mean, it was bad. He was so bad on this album.
He was awful.
And everything else about the album was so good. And if you're not good at singing anymore, if you've lost it, don't put good singers on with you. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Just if he hadn't sung with other people, I probably wouldn't have noticed it as much.
Oh, come on. It was obvious.
I would have said he's cooked. Yeah. For sure. But like there's a big difference between so if I'm watching an old man like run a 5K, sure, and he's using a walker, he don't got it no more. Okay. Putting him up against a Olympic distance runner is not the best choice. It's going to make him look worse.
It is not going to help.
And I think that that's the best I could say. Is like everything else about this album is so good. Meatloaf is not good. And the lyrics are also awful.
Okay, thank you.
The lyrics are also awful. I mean, the lyrics have just
terrible.
Yeah, the lyrics are terrible. But the compositions are great.
Okay.
You know what you know what I'll say? You know what I'll say?
Go ahead.
Because Jim Steinman does all of the lyrics and composition, really, except for a couple places of all 3 albums we listened to.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody like Jim Steinman in his existence uh, proves why Bernie Taupin was so important to Elton John.
Sure.
Because
Mm-hmm.
Steinman absolutely has the compositional stuff.
Sure.
He needed a Bernie Taupin to write lyrics
Yep.
for him.
Uh-huh.
And maybe someone to sing them.
Yes. Okay. I'm gonna have to differ with you a little bit here, although I have a lot of the same criticisms. I'm looking at this album, and the shark is like almost can't even see it in the rear view mirror anymore. They jumped the shark so long ago.
That's fair. That's fair.
I mean, like, this is done. You cannot keep doing this style. One, I mean, it would have been nice to see a little bit of variation in the approach, but I understand that the niche that they're in, that maybe there's less of a chance of that happening. But Meatloaf lost the ability to do it long ago. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you cannot pull off this type of music with
No,
his
no
voice
way.
being what it is. And also, I mean, the lyrics were terrible. The like I am totally fine with self-referential lyrics and writing and things like that when it makes sense and if it's done in a good way. Just plain old reusing the lyrics of 2 out of 3 Ain't Bad on Souvenirs was bad. It was a rough moment for me.
What about?
Um,
Come on,
and
you're
then
gotta
they
talk about.
just in the middle of it, they just started doing Total Eclipse of the Heart at some point.
Well,
Like,
you know
what?
that that's Jim Steinman.
Oh, did he write that
He wrote for
originally?
Bonnie Tyler.
Okay.
I didn't. I mean,
I
I
mean,
knew he wrote for Bonnie Tyler, and I just was so sure at that point that he had to have written Total Eclipse of the Heart.
yeah, okay, that makes sense.
He
And you
did
know
write
what?
Total Eclipse of the Heart.
And I guess so. That's one of those things that I feel like maybe would fly if you were putting on a Broadway musical and you took some lyrics to like make an allusion to another famous Broadway musical or piece of uh
Well, that's what this is,
like
right? I
you
mean,
know,
we can.
but it does not work without the visual media to go with it. Without the full performance, it comes across as corny and bad on the album, like just as songs. I
I
don't like it at all.
total. I listen. I respect that opinion for sure, and I get it. My opinion of if we look at this, like what the third Bat Out of Hell should have been, and what is to like wrap up the series, I like the consistency of it. And I do think it got worse, but at the same
I
time,
mean, this a lot of these lyrics were super like old man yells a cloud meets
yeah. Oh,
like some
forget
guy
the
on
lyrics.
Twitter who thinks he's a philosopher.
Seriously, I can't stress this enough. Forget the new lyrics.
Hmm.
They're bad, and this is a bad sequel. But
Yes.
at the same time, like
Aren't they all bad?
look at the new Star Wars sequel series.
Right. Not good.
Not good. The first one was all right. Then they got worse and worse as you went.
Yes, for sure.
That's what Bad Out of Hell is. The first one's all right, and they get worse and worse. But I
By the
like
third one, they're totally out of ideas
that's true.
and
I
start
like
bringing back things from earlier in their careers that make no sense.
I'm shocked how well this metaphor
Yeah,
worked when I
it
said
did.
like it's pretty perfect. But like seriously, for me, like this album and really these 3 albums, they feel unique to me in that. I like the
Okay.
fact that they went for something of like, let's make this like a 3 musical series.
Okay.
Like I think it's unique. I don't think it's done well all the way through.
Right.
I like the uniqueness of it more than I like the execution.
Sure. Okay, so here's my last thing, and it's just about the first track. And I don't
Yeah.
know if you'll have the same take because I don't know if you've
Who
ever
needs
read
the
this
young?
book. Yeah,
Okay.
Who Needs the Young? It felt to me like if they made a new movie based off of the novel Something Wicked This Way Comes, this would be the song that they played at the circus. This is like
That
Cougar and
is
Dark Circus Band plays the song.
spot on.
Okay.
That is spot on.
Because that was the thought that immediately arose within me upon hearing
That's really I like that.
it.
Okay,
Okay.
so
Tell us
enough
about
enough
Meatloaf.
about enough about Meatloaf stuff. I'll tell you a little bit about Meatloaf the person. So I have a couple
Also not
different
great.
unique things. I have a couple different unique things. And the first one we kind of already touched upon. I feel like it's very unique to have your first album be based on a reworked musical score.
Sure, totally.
That feels really unique to me. Like that's something I haven't heard before. Especially that it was it being turned into a musical is less unique.
Yes.
That happens, having your works of art turned into musicals.
Yeah.
So that was one unique thing, but I wanted to talk about another one that I very briefly touched on in my first sentence. So Meatloaf was born Marvin Lee Addy.
Right.
And changed his name to Michael Lee Addy.
Yes.
And he did that because, according to him, and this is, I don't have the confirmation of this commercial existing. There was a commercial, a Levi Strauss commercial, that had the phrase, "Poor fat Marvin can't wear Levi's."
Yes.
And now here's the thing. I want to get serious for a second here. The fragility it takes to fully change your legal name based on that is rough.
Yeah.
As somebody who has struggled with, like, you know, their weight and like the thought process behind that. And listen, my name is Pat.
Crazy advertising.
Yeah.
Insane.
My name is Pat. It does rhyme with a certain word that, you know, if you're a little overweight, it's rough. It's rough for me out there. I would never have considered changing my legal name, but I can understand the weight of like, everything about it is brought, like, it brings it back, and like maybe that was just the straw that broke the camel's back. He's gone on record and said that he was so like ostracized from his like children in his neighborhood growing up because he couldn't keep up with them, that he just developed severe social anxiety because he was just always alone inside. Nobody would play with him.
Yeah.
And like so like clearly the dude struggled with his self-image his whole life. So, but like just a unique thing to change your name. This is a point where I'm not making fun of Meatloaf. I want to be clear. I agree. Like, it sucks that he felt that he had to do that.
Yes.
But it's just a very unique thing about him. Highlight. How do you not use Bat Out of Hell?
You can't.
There's no other way. I mean, just a little bit of profits here. It went 14 times platinum in the United States, 26 times platinum in Australia, 2 times diamond in Canada, 11 times platinum in Britain. That's like a full career for most successful musicians.
Like Korn, for instance.
Yeah, that's true. He sold more than Korn on this album, on his debut album.
40 million records.
Yeah, so done. Nailed it. Have nothing else to say. That's the highlight. Low light. There was a few I could pick from here. I chose the year 2016. And I did that for a couple of reasons. So he'd been having some health problems at this point, and he had a moment in Edmonton where he on stage got severely dehydrated. And I'll tell you, as a musician who is, packing a little bit extra, drink water every second.
Yeah.
If you're in a summer gig, like I have a 64-ounce water bottle. Nick does as well. Alex does as well. And Mason has a smaller one because he's a tiny boy.
He is.
But 64-ounce water bottle, and I drink at least one full of them during a gig.
Yeah.
Especially if I'm outside in the summer.
And he doesn't pee.
Yeah, I don't, because I just sweat it out.
Yeah.
So he collapsed on stage from dehydration in 2016. And he had already canceled 2 other shows due to an illness that year. So he'd having a rough year.
Yeah.
The low light is the playback that contained his pre-recorded vocal track continued as he laid unconscious on the stage. Which caused a lot of controversy over lip syncing.
Yeah.
And that was kind of rough. He claims that he denied lip syncing, claiming that his mic was live. And dude, you were unconscious and you were still singing.
Come on.
It's hard to come back from that.
And we know what you sounded like on the album that came out that year. You ain't singing any of your songs anymore.
Yeah. So just the year 2016 was rough. After that, he had a couple different physical therapy things. He used like cupping, acupuncture to try to. He had emergency back surgery in November of that year, so just a rough year all over.
Sure.
But the lip syncing thing was the low light for me. The year
Yeah,
2016.
sure.
So the nicest thing
Nothing
that
else he did in 2016?
the nicest
Oh,
thing
it
that
all
Meatloaf
worried
ever
you?
did. The nicest thing that
Nothing in
Meatloaf ever
November of
did.
2016 that he did
Oh
that
no,
made
he
you
had
worry?
emergency back surgery. I told you on that. I already said he he had a spinal fusion due to a cyst.
Mhm.
The
Yeah, keep
nicest
going.
thing Meatloaf ever did. I was looking up his philanthropy. It's a short list. Sorry. And I came across the fact that I knew this already, but it was a charity season. He was on The Celebrity Apprentice with former President Donald J. Trump,
Oh, yeah. I know him.
and he donated to the Painted Turtle, which was a summer camp for children with life-threatening illnesses or chronic illnesses like spina bifida, hemophilia, muscular dystrophy. So
Mhm.
his charity that he competed for that season was that, and
Sure.
you know,
Yeah, that's great.
it's great. So there's the meanest thing that Meatloaf's ever done. Shockingly, there's a couple choices to pick from here. I'll go over a few of them. So he was a very vocal climate change denier as well as
Uh-huh.
COVID denier.
Yep.
So he opposed the mask mandates and once on record described a person who called for people on airplanes to wear masks as Nazis
Yeah,
and
that's totally
power mad.
equivocal.
Yeah, so that was a probably pretty mean to
That's a
literally
totally
saying, "Oh,
fair
you should wear a
understanding of
mask on an
history.
airplane," calling them a Nazi. Really disrespectful to really anybody who suffered from real Nazis.
Yeah. Or anyone who cares about the meanings of words or
Yeah, that's true. That's
anything at
also
all.
a great point.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was, so I said that was the COVID denier part. Then the climate change denier part. He again on record said that I feel bad for Greta Thunberg. She's been brainwashed into thinking that there is climate change and there isn't. She hasn't done anything wrong, but she's been forced into thinking that what she is saying is true. And like, I feel like a grown ass man attacking a teenager for believing in climate change and trying to do something about it is pretty mean.
Yeah, well, he's a fucking idiot. Was a fucking idiot.
Oh, yeah, it should be mentioned that Meatloaf died from complications due to COVID-19.
Nope. It was something else.
No, it wasn't.
At least it wasn't climate change.
Yeah, at
That
least
what
it
a
wasn't
fucking
climate
asshole.
change. So, just thought I should say that. No cause of death was ever released. I want to say that.
There you go.
No official cause of death was released. So me saying he died of climate change is my opinion.
Yeah, well, sure he did.
No, me saying he died of COVID is an opinion. However, he was reportedly ill with COVID shortly before his death. And
Shock.
it's pretty obvious that he probably died from complications of that.
Yeah.
So just want to say.
All right. What do you got left? Some
That's
6
all.
degrees?
Some 6 degrees. And this is where it gets more fun. So we already mentioned one of them. So the producer for Bat Out of Hell was Todd Rundgren.
Yeah.
Also,
I think a lot of the Todd Rundgren's Utopia people were on those records.
Yes, and also played guitar, percussion, keyboards, backing vocals. Also on that album was Edgar Winter. He played sax on a few songs on that album.
Right.
So some cool little 6 degrees there. And then I have one that is about the real star of Meatloaf, Jim Steinman. So Jim Steinman was a producer for a movie soundtrack for a little known film called Footloose.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, also on
our
Footloose
guy from last week
was our guy from last week, Kenny Loggins, and also Sammy Hagar, and also Mick Jones and Lou Graham from Foreigner.
How about that?
So that's the fun one.
Well done. Well done.
More Jim Steinman, more fun people.
Okay.
And that's all I got for the loaf.
Let's give these guys some grades.
Let's give them some grades.
I don't feel like these first
Hey,
grades are going to be
does not
too
care
far
about the
off.
meaning of words. I love it.
So I don't know how far we're going to be here between Corn and Meatloaf, honestly, for very different reasons.
For very different reasons.
For very different reasons. Meatloaf, huge on his first record, really only has one song anyone ever knew afterwards. Is more of a personality and an actor, really, in a lot of things in later times. Whereas Korn was just like very successful steadily over the course of their careers and had a lot of influence on the art style. So, I mean, where do we sit on these?
I mean, here's what I'll say. In terms of cultural impact, I think musically you can compare them and they compare similarly. There is a whole other realm to Meatloaf. His name was Robert Paulson.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
He was Eddie in Rocky Horror Picture Show. He's been in media and films, multiple theater pieces. He's been around for so long. He was a household name. People know who Meatloaf is.
Some people eat him for dinner.
That's true. That's a great point. Ironically, they showed his dead body. I believe they ate him for dinner in Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Fascinating.
So they either ate him or he was like his dead body was on. It's been a while since I've seen it, but regardless, you have to give the edge to Meatloaf here for that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Why do you guys keep saying Meatloaf?
It's the guy's name.
That's the guy's name, Mark.
Yeah, so that's
Michael
fine.
Lee.
But
his name was Robert Paulson. I love it.
Well, I don't want to.
I would prefer if he was Robert Paulson.
Well,
the first rule of Fight Club is we can't talk about it.
God damn it!
I broke the rule.
Just broke the second rule.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. All right. What do you want to give these people? I mean, I don't think I'm maybe maxing out in the 5 somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know. I struggle. I feel like I'm at a 6 even for Meatloaf. I think he's significantly above the average, being a household name, being involved in so many other medias. The explosion that was Bat Out of Hell. And I think you go in the lower 5s for Korn.
Okay.
For creating new metal and all of those things.
I'll give you a 5.9 for Meatloaf.
Sure, I'm okay with that.
And I'll give you
maybe like a 5.4 that works.
Okay. Both of these artists are in the same range for total numbers of albums. Meatloaf with 12, Korn with 14. They both start out with a 5.8. And then we start talking sales. Korn, 40 million records. Got to get at least 0.4 added onto there, unless you think it should be more.
I think that's fine. I think 0.4 is fine.
Okay, I'm going to take 0.3 of them back.
And so am I. Get rid of them.
To listen to. Okay.
Get rid of them.
Meatloaf. You're probably going to have to put on the full half a point, I would say.
I, again, would agree. And I just want to be clear for people who may not know about this. What we're doing here is the number of albums you release. This is their breadth of work. So it's number of albums released gives you a certain number. That's the first number Nick is saying. We're adding or potentially subtracting numbers based on their overall sales. Both of these artists sold extremely well.
Correct.
And then the last little point, up to a 0.5 plus or minus, is Nick and I's opinion of the albums we listened to. So with Korn, they had their whole score. We each took away a 0.3 because we hated listening to them.
Correct.
And now for Meatloaf, we give him a 0.5 to his initial score for selling as much as he did, including having the 4th best-selling album of all time. Wild. And what are we? Are you adding or subtracting first? Or would you like me to go first?
You can go first.
I'm going to add a 0.2. I know Meatloaf may be the weak link of Meatloaf songs.
He is.
But the songs are enjoyable, and I really like the concept of the 3 we listened to. Again, not executed well, and which is why he's only getting a 0.2, but the compositions are so good, and I enjoyed listening to them.
I mostly agree with you, but for me, it's just going to be a wash because I really felt it had fully jumped the shark. And the third one was, I thought, actively bad.
Fair.
That would have been the one where I was like, no, I don't even want to go see it as a show. The first 2, I would have been like, okay, I'll see it as a show.
Did you see the third Star Wars sequel film?
Eventually, yeah.
So,
and it was terrible.
Just saying, you probably would have seen the
but if our metaphor, the third one was the best by far.
That's true. That's true.
Anyway, I'm going to let the first 2 cancel each other out, and then I'm going to let the second one's music and lyrics cancel each other out, and I'm just not going to do anything.
Understood. And that makes perfect sense.
Instrumental talent. Meatloaf gets the edge again to me because there was singing going on one hand, and on the other hand, I just felt like the backing musicians between Steinman and Todd Rundgren and a lot of his Utopia guys, they just played more impressive stuff to me.
Totally.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm with you entirely.
I mean, I think Korn definitely can play their instruments, like no doubt about it. They don't really write their songs in a way that shows off much more than the drums, really. I would say, like, if you're a big rhythm section guy, I can understand why you could dig Korn. Is it enough to cancel out how bad the vocals are? I don't know. How close to a 5 can we be on either side? That's kind of what I'm thinking.
I understand completely. I'm probably at like a little under a 5 for Korn, for the fact that they don't attempt to sing the entire first album. The second album, they attempt to sing, but the rapping is good on one of the songs, and then Fred Durst
has nothing to do with them.
That's true. Ice Cube is a good rapper, and he happens to be on this album. And then I'll say the third Meatloaf album, his vocals on that, right, would be the second best Korn album we listened to.
Okay.
In terms of vocals.
Sure.
And that says a lot.
That's fair. That's totally fair.
I would probably be, I think I'm being very beneficial to Korn by giving them like a 4.5 here.
Wow.
If you want to talk me up, you can. But that's where I would
thought that the drummer was like clearly above average.
Yeah.
So I think that just factoring in, I can understand why the vocals are worse than the drums are good, but I do.
And I think everything else was just so middle of the road.
I'm at least taking them back to a 4.6 because there were no moments of good. There were plenty of moments of solid. I would have liked more, but they at least existed on the other instruments. Like,
you know what? A 4.6 it is, my friend.
And I will be a little bit above the average for Meatloaf. I'll be in the 5s here. But I do think what was played executed very well, and the vocals were done ably. Meatloaf is good, but not great as a singer.
Agreed. And I think Meatloaf himself would be like in the low 5s until he got old.
Sure. Then he was really bad.
Yeah, really, really bad when he got old. But
Yeah, I wonder how much do you like? Well, I mean, it's one of those things like with vocal groups from the Motown era and whatnot. How much, when you are the name of the act, does that contribute to the overall score as opposed to the people who are in the studio behind you?
And I think that's the thing. Like, I think if we're giving Meatloaf would be like maybe like a 5.2 or 5.3 for me. He's above average. He's got a wide range. His tone is a little rough.
Yeah.
And so, like, if that's the case, he's still above average.
Yeah.
And then when you put in just the artists, I mean, the musicians behind him that create
they
these
play very well
prog-esque scenes and musical scenes behind him, it's very good. It's all very good.
It's totally undeniably good.
Hello there. So I think for that reason, you wanted to so bad.
My lightsabers out.
So I think we're talking about Meatloaf versus Korn, the battle of who's the better artist. And I think right now we're talking, I would give out of 10.
Yeah.
I would give Meatloaf's entire band a 6.
Okay, so what do you want? Like a 5.6 overall?
Yeah.
Pull those vocals up. Very good. Songwriting.
So Meatloaf gets a 0.1 for the next 2 categories. He does not write his songs.
Well, I actually have some contention to that. But first,
he's like a third credited writer on 2 songs.
Well, no, that's not my contention.
Oh, okay.
But we'll move along. Korn. I have to give them some credit for the fact that they are pioneers of a genre.
That's going to go in X Factor, though.
Sure, but it is like writing music in a new style is songwriting points to some extent. Now, I felt like there was not really any positive growth in the songwriting skills of this group. I feel like they're like super, yeah.
Corn with a K, yeah.
Yes. They're like super samey throughout their discography. There's not a lot of variation in the song structure. Um, I would definitely have them below in terms of songwriting as far as what I heard on the records.
Couldn't agree with you more.
I just don't think we can do too crazy low because
it doesn't have to be crazy low. It's below average though.
Yeah, I could even be in the high 3s.
And I'm fine with that. Let's give him a 3.8.
They got it.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And
it reflects our tastes.
Honestly,
it reflects the way we think.
For anybody listening to the recorded version, we have a commenter saying they don't know Meatloaf or Corn, and that's fine. That's all right. If we do this every week with 2 artists that maybe we don't even know until we go into it.
It would definitely have something to do with Meatloaf, maybe late Corn.
Yeah, roughly late Corn.
Corn was still popular into the early 2000s.
Sadly for that.
Agreed.
Now, I don't. What's your contention for not giving Meatloaf?
Well, my contention is exactly what we've discussed before, which is how much of Meatloaf is Meatloaf and Jim Steinman, in the same way how much of Elton John is Elton John and Bernie Taupin, or like any other artist that heavily collaborates. Like we gave Corey Wong a little bit of benefit of the doubt in our season 6.5.
12 albums of Meatloaf.
Right.
6 albums were Jim Steinman collaborations.
Okay.
So he doesn't write his words and lyrics.
Okay.
And only half of like if it was full Jim Steinman,
part of me
I'd
was
be willing to
thinking
give him
like maybe he gets the credit for like Jim Steinman is a part of what the group Meatloaf is, and I would even still maybe give half credit for Steinman and not give like 0.1s.
What happened, Anaconda? Oh God.
I'm not ready for that.
Don't make me want to listen to Korn again.
Yeah. I would almost be willing to meet in the middle and give him like 3s or something. And if that's too crazy for you, that's fine. But I think you have to get Jim Steinman is so much of what Meatloaf is. The only songs by Meatloaf anyone has ever heard were all written by Jim Steinman. It's what everyone associates him with. It was a songwriting partnership for at least half of his career.
Yeah, that's true. And we would probably give him about a 6, I think. Yeah, okay. I'm okay with it.
Like, because with a lot of people who pop singers and stuff who have like all their music written for them, it's like 35 different writers on the album. It's not like it's a collaborative partnership where the two are known for working with each other, and it is like a nice, good for you.
Listen, Bat Out of Hell, the first album, killer. You'll enjoy that one. I think we give Meatloaf 3 for songwriting.
Oh, and then we gotta go. Oh, and the lyrics
and a 2.
So
a 2.
Yeah, just a 2. No muss.
No muss. For lyrics. And honestly, I could see giving Korn 2 for lyrics as well.
Brilliant. Well
They're
done.
brutal. They're brutal all the way through.
X Factor will give Korn a little bit for new metal. It's a subgenre, so not like a full 2 points or anything, but I'd give them like a half to a 0.7.
Yeah, I'd be willing to give them the half.
Oh, you know what we never talked about Korn? Do you know why the R in Korn is backwards?
I don't.
So several of the guys in the band were working at Toys R Us at the time, like while they were first getting started and like trying to break. And the backwards R from Toys R Us is what gave them the idea to do it in Korn.
You're joking.
I am not. That's where Korn comes from.
I'm glad Toys R Us closed now. I mean,
hey.
I'm kidding.
Watch it, buddy.
I'm kidding, but yikes.
Yeah.
Okay, so 0.5 for new metal.
Correct.
How much do we give Meatloaf for the 4th best-selling album of all time?
It's got to be something.
It's got to be something.
And it's got to be maybe something for...
It is a wild fact of the R, though.
Like, once in a while, we'll have artists who are like, oh my God, they were in a movie. But, like,
you got to give
like
him...
legitimately an actor for a time.
Yeah, you got to give him Eddie. You got to give him Robert Paulson. There's a few in between. Also, I mean, we should talk about his opening song from Tenacious D, Pick of Destiny. He has that like crazy intro. He played Jack Black's dad in that.
Oh,
His
yeah.
like
Okay.
conservative religious father.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense because that's who
Yeah.
Meatloaf was.
Just
He didn't even know he was the bad guy.
Just an interesting thing.
Yeah. What do you want to give him? I'm still probably a little under 1 point for that stuff, but I'm approaching. I could be like a 0.9.
I think a 0.9 fits. I think a 0.9 out of 5 for that one for anybody.
And I got
who
final
sure.
scores, and they're
I'm
final.
excited.
So please do not try to get them changed after the fact.
I will never try. I will never change these scores again.
Excellent. So winning this week's matchup with a score of 23.9 is Meatloaf.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. And winning
that's
second place.
Right. Winning second place
with a 21.9. So 2 points exactly separated them was Corn. It wasn't a wonderful week, I will say.
Here's what I'm going to tell you for anybody
who Meatloaf was clearly the winner.
Yeah, for anybody who doesn't know, we keep tabs of all of our scores. Scores in the low 20s are pretty below average. They're, our scores go up to our scores go up to 55 max.
But no one gets that.
No one gets up there. I mean, that's crazy.
We're pretty harsh.
We are pretty harsh. We're rough. I feel bad for your students for how rough we are as graders.
Oh yeah.
My God, they don't stand a chance.
Not at all.
But yeah, so that's the scores this week. You were correct in the beginning of this episode. We did not find the next great musical, the greatest musical artist of all time.
I knew it.
But listen, join us next week because we got something fun. I'm sure.
Who's in next week?
Who's in next week?
That's what I'm asking.
That's what I don't know.
Something like that. I think it might be I'm a little split on it. I'm going to have to take it like one person at a time.
That's fine.
But
we'll find out who's better
in this episode.
Yeah. We'll find out who's better. Before we do anything else, I want to thank y'all for tuning in. I want to thank all the lovely commenters. Stick around if you're still here. We'll have a little bit of a live section after this where we're not recording the podcast anymore, just to talk about what we thought, and then hang out next week. But listen, I know y'all love us and you would do anything for love, but please do me one favor and have a great day. Okay.
Oh my God, what a ridiculous line. This guy.
Oh man,
that's okay. I barely know what's going on.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's always funny. You can always tell I don't know if you realize your eyes are
my eyes.
Clocks.
Oh my God.
Are absolute clocks into when that gummy hits you.
Oh, 100%.
Juicy fruit gummy, of course. Juicy fruit only.
Sure. I'm sure they make gummy.
Welch's fruit snacks. I don't know. Whatever. But hey, you know what? We got through it.
We did.
We got through it. Do you want the P or the R next week?
I'll take P, and you can take R.
I'll take R. No spoilers for anybody who may tune in next week.
Exactly. But that one, I have concerns, but I'm also thinking it's got to be good, right? Like, it can't be bad.
It looks like it's going to be the bright spot of the next 6 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not wrong.
And by 6 weeks, I mean maybe
I can see a couple artists that I'll enjoy.
Yeah, but it depends.
But not both. I don't see any place where I'm going to enjoy both.
No, I don't either.
Although maybe episode 163 will surprise us.
I don't know which one that is in season, but I'm scared.
It's the one where both artists have the same name. And one is American, one is Yugoslav.
My favorite episode of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fair. Listen, it is what it is. We're doing it. Oh, you know what? Oh, I gotta tell you.
Yeah,
I haven't had a chance to talk to you. Tuesday,
mm-hmm.
I had a 45-minute conversation with the customer service at unnamed podcast hosting service.
Oh my God.
That used to host our stuff.
Okay.
where basically what happened was, remember how I told you that they figured out what the problem was and they should have our stuff taken care of by the end of November?
Yes.
Do you remember how it's December 21st?
I vaguely remember that.
So what happened was they figured it out. They gave the task to somebody to do. And then like a week later, that person quit the job or was laid off. I don't know. I didn't ask, but no longer works for the company.
Okay.
And we just straight up fell through the cracks. They were like,
All right.
they're part of, I guess they're just whatever. So there just was nobody working on it this whole time.
That's fine.
Dude, I went off. I was like, are you kidding? Like it's been 6 months at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's brutal.
That's crazy.
So yeah. So needless to say, it is a top priority. They said that they're going to work very hard to make sure that it's all up by the new year.
Okay.
And I said, okay. Because at that point I was like, is it better for me to like put it up on your site and just do that, and then we can work on canceling it? And they're like, no, that won't work because we've already closed the RSS feed. It's just like, and then they gave me a whole bunch of jargon that I just didn't care about.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to know how the individual RSS feed works. That's your job.
Don't know, don't care.
But I was like, dude, steam was coming out of my ears. Like, and it had to be for me to be in a phone conversation for 45 minutes with customer service. Like, that's what customer service chats are for.
Right.
I was.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done it.
Oh, well, it took me 6 months.
Sure.
But I kept waiting for it to go up. I tried emailing the people that emailed me to say that it was going to be up by the end of December. I tried emailing that link, which apparently is that guy, which is why nobody was answering it. And so I finally did a chat, and then it went into a phone call, and I was just like, what the fuck, dude?
Christ.
So hopefully by the beginning of the year, 20 episodes of our podcast will all upload simultaneously.
Wouldn't that be nice?
That'd be great.
I'll tell you, they've gotten a lot saucier over the last 20 episodes.
Yeah.
A lot saucier.
It's true. That's a good point.
I'm no longer giving any fucks. I'm like just going in.
It is what it is, man. As long as we're consistent, you know?
I agree.
As long as our opinions are true.
Yeah, my tongue feels a little liberated by the end of the episode as well. So
I wonder why.
Yeah, I don't know. But I'm ready to really give some opinions. I don't need to dance around anything.
Oh, I think you're going to really enjoy next week.
Oh my god. I will not take him. I will not do it. Because if I do, you will get nothing but all the information will be a laundry list of how that's the worst person in the world.
Fine, but I will find an episode this season where you'll make it up to me.
I was the one who had to do or I guess I didn't have to do it because of the format of the show at that time, but I did Ted Nugent. I researched him into the ground.
You did. But that was, as you mentioned, your own choice.
I guess so. Because I didn't want to say anything nice about him.
It's hard to.
He didn't deserve it.
It's hard to do that. All right. Okay. Listen, we've been here long enough.
That's true.
We've been here long enough. We need to go listen to other music. Rest our ears, I guess.
Oh yeah, I've been listening to a lot of stuff that was not this week's listing.
That's fair. You had to break it up. Mm-hmm. Although again, I enjoyed more of Meatloaf than I didn't.
Yeah,
and I enjoyed none of.
So did I, but not in a sense that I would want to go listen to it again.
That's fair. I wonder if. I feel like.
But if you get tickets for the Bad Out of Hell show, I would totally go.
Yeah, I'm sure that's wonderful.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
I'm sure that's a wonderful, kooky, I would assume it's if I had to guess, a pseudo comedy horror-esque.
I would imagine.
Show. I mean, which is great. Yeah. I love that. I'm all in. I'm curious, Comrade, if you're still around, what you thought of Korn growing up. Because I know you like more the Linkin Park-esque stuff, at least in your soundtrack on your streams, you'll get a little more of
Ah,
that. So I'm curious what you thought of Korn, because we did not enjoy Korn.
no.
Korn was a rough listen for us, but it's okay. It was no Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum.
And nothing ever will be again. Although I will say this about Sleepy Time Grill Museum. Their songs didn't all sound the same.
That's a great point.
Oh,
You've
okay.
seen them once live.
Okay.
Was that by
Fair
choice
enough.
because you're a fan of Korn, or was that you got tricked into seeing Korn live? Now I'm very curious. Because you didn't say, "Oh, I really like Korn." You said, "I've seen them once live."
That's true. It gives an impression, although it
Yeah,
is not fully definitive.
that's a great point. Listen, everyone's entitled to their musical opinion. If
Oh,
you
of
liked
course.
Korn, that's fine. Grew up
Fair
with them,
enough.
thoroughly enjoyed the unique style of genre. That's fair. That's fair. I get it. For me, I think that we talked about it early on. I don't know if you were here early on. The shock, like the shock aspect of the lyrics was a bit of a turn off. Like it felt like they were just being shocking to be shocking. And
Okay.
I would agree with you on that as well.
I also would
Both of those
say
artists would be
enjoy
higher for
most
me
of
as
those
well.
artists, or
Yeah.
more of those artists than
We
Korn for
did
sure.
Tool. We did Tool so long
We
ago.
covered and Audio Slave really long ago in the first
Well,
season.
yeah, that was part of the Cornell
But
episode.
yeah, exactly. But Tool, I remember having like the opposite opinion of most Tool fans, which is I wasn't as crazy about most of their stuff, but their most recent album I loved. Like I actually genuinely like it was the most straightforward, like prog metally one, most akin to like Dream Theater. And
Yeah,
that's what I really liked.
I get that. Oh, Dream Theater. Let's get back to them.
Yeah, if we're gonna have to listen to metal, definitely Dream Theater.
That's where I want to be if we're listening to metal for sure.
Yeah. There is another group that's got some similar vibes that we'll cover one of these days.
I'm
called
excited.
Evership. That's very good.
That's true. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
You're with me. See,
Yeah.
I figured we agree on a lot of music stuff, me and Comrade.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's I think that's a big huge problem with the whole genre itself.
And honestly, that was the
stagnates.
same thing that I had with an artist like Meatloaf. Like for me, I tend to really like artists way more that change and develop over the course of their albums. Whereas if it's pretty much the same, different iterations of the same album over and over again, I'm not going to dig it. Or at least by the very end, it's going to really have tired me out.
You just your comment right there, Comrade, is I would legitimately think our most common critique on this podcast
100%
is that artists stagnate and therefore bore us by the third album.
And
the only reason Meatloaf didn't for me was it was a unique concept.
Yeah, and I get that.
The concept felt unique, and like the fact that we got the three, because I don't count Bad Out of Hell 3 according to the producer and like the way that it all themed out. I count Braver Than We Are as Bad Out of Hell 3. And so you get that unique concept that kind of takes away the monotony of it. What I would be curious, because I've never done this, but I think I'm going to, I want to go listen to one of the non-Jim Steinman Meatloaf albums just to see how different it is.
Sure. Yeah. That would be something. But yeah, no, I agree with the whole songwriting methods thing.
Yeah, always try out new stuff.
I mean, that's why the Beatles are who the Beatles were. If the Beatles were the same Beatles for the first 3 albums, as much as I enjoy them, like if there's no Revolver, if there's no Sgt. Pepper's, there's no Abbey Road, then the Beatles aren't who they are.
Yeah, and that's a huge part of it. Like it is scary to step outside of your comfort zone, but I always it's one of my most repeated lines when that happens is like, I didn't like what you did, but I respect you for trying it. Like we've had artists where like they tried something different and it sucks. And it's like, oh, it's awful, but like I respect that you didn't just do the thing. Like for instance, so many artists, like if you go back to like early 2000s with like Fall Out Boy and them, like so many artists in that vein and that like proto like new punk-esque style emo pop
Yeah.
transitioned into like melodic computer pop.
Yeah.
And it's just such a like a narrow path that they're setting themselves up for. And so many of them did it that when there's artists that don't do it, even if it sucks, I'm like, thank God you didn't
Something.
do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's brutal to listen to when everybody does the same thing. It's just like we're all just muddling forth, especially like as musicians. Like I hate to feel like there's a path we have to follow.
100%.
Like I would never
If
want to feel
I
that
mean,
way.
even when we're working on our stuff, like if I felt constricted,
Yeah.
I would hate it. You know, because our everything that we've done so far, I would say we don't really have any songs that sound similar to each other. Like
No. And that's the whole
it's
point,
pretty much
right?
across the board because we have a lot of different interests.
Yeah. I think my biggest turnoff when I'm listening to an album is if I can't tell when a song ends and a new song begins, where I'm
Oh
like
yeah, absolutely.
fully paying attention and I can't tell we're in a different song. That's a failure to me.
Yeah.
That's a rough time for me. Yeah, exactly. You need to write and create in your own way and not give in
Yeah.
to like the outside pressures. And I feel
Yeah.
like when you do that, it just sounds
Mhm.
so soulless. We've seen that. We saw that with Fallout Boy.
Mhm.
We saw that with like to bring it back in time, Frankie Valley.
Mhm.
When we covered Frankie Valley, like
Yeah.
when
He was
you are
just chasing a sound,
writing
but I get what you're saying.
hits and
Kind of.
popularity, it's brutal.
Yeah. I totally respect that. And it feels like live, I really feel that way too. Like when we're playing shows, there's so because we do like we're pretty improvisational
Yeah.
live. So very much
When are you
about
coming on the
acting and
podcast, Conrad?
reacting.
We got to get you on here, buddy.
Yeah.
I know we talked about it a long time ago, and then we stopped talking about it. So we got to figure that out. I want to get you on here. I always like talking music with you.
Oh shoot, what was I gonna say? What were we talking about before we started talking about live shows and yeah,
So never. So
yeah,
that's yeah, because we're adults and time is a
it doesn't work
structure.
that way.
Time is a construct that ruins us.
Damn. Oh, Pat, what were we talking about right before that? What were you saying right before we started talking about
Oh,
like
like how Fall Out Boy and Frankie Valley just write for the hits and they write
oh yeah, now I
what sounds
remember.
popular and not at all trying to create what
So
is good to them.
exactly. And I respect that to an immense extent where sometimes I even find myself liking albums and genres that I totally otherwise would not enjoy because I find the songwriting so interesting and creative.
Yeah.
So the artist that I really love that I sent you one of his records a month or two ago, Sufjan Stevens.
Yes.
So Illinois is one of my favorite albums. Like I love it. Another one of his albums that came out a little later in the early 2010s called The Age of Ads, and it's um, just like super electronic and different from a lot of the stuff that you would get of like the Baroque pop on Illinois.
Okay.
And I loved it though
Fascinating.
because um, I was just like
I completely agree
super
about
into
Billie
his songwriting.
Eilish. We
And
covered her and I loved her.
we
Her and
covered
she
her
is
and
genius.
I hated her.
Yeah.
But one thing I was super consistent about the whole time is that I was glad that she was popular, and even though I didn't personally connect with her music, I totally understood why people would, and that I thought it was good that someone who like brought their own unique songwriting ideas was popular.
Yep.
So it's just someone like that I did not enjoy the music, but I really respect it as an artist.
Yeah. I really enjoy Billie Eilish. For all of the reasons you respect her, I enjoy her. I also love that we had by far the most traffic on the pod today when my camera is acting the fuck up the whole
Whatever.
time. I'm so annoyed. My camera never does this stupid flicker thing, and today it was, and I was like, no one watches anyway. Click, and then of course. uh, yeah,
That's
I always
exactly what
when
I
you're
mean. Yeah.
pumping out generic pop tunes, it couldn't be more obvious to me. Like when you don't have passion for what you're doing and you're just doing it, it
Yeah.
feels super like formulaic and boring.
100%.
So it is Murphy's Law. It is what it is. I know you know it well as a streamer to just it's one little thing and you're just like it could be one of 50 things causing this problem, but I have to go live and talk about this. So I got to just ignore it for now. Otherwise I would have been fiddling with this for an hour.
I would have fallen asleep.
That's fair. It is way past your bedtime. Yeah. All right, listen. As fun as this is,
yes,
I got to roll. Sydney's home and I'm
Very
sure
good.
she's just desperately waiting right outside the door for me. I'm hoping. If she's not, I'll be upset. But
understandable.
Listen, thanks for
all right, guys. Thanks for
hanging out, comrade. And I think I know Megan was around and Hexphobia.
Hexphobia.
If
Yeah,
you're still around, thanks for hanging out.
absolutely.
Really enjoyed some of the conversations.
Yeah,
It's always
nice to be a
interesting to
little
get to talk
interactive.
about people. And
yeah, we never really get to actually do that.
Yeah, and if Hexaphobia is still around, hopefully you're enjoying listening to Bat Out of Hell.
Right.
It is. It's. I would maybe stop after that. but hey, yeah. All right, comrade. Listen, I'm gonna try to catch your. I'm gonna try to catch your. Maybe not. Well, we have a gig tomorrow, so I won't be on tomorrow. But maybe I'll try to pop into your stream. Return the favor. I feel like I haven't been on Twitch in forever, other than me literally being on Twitch right now.
It's the only time I've ever been on.
That's fair. That's fair.
What is the internet?
It's fake. It's not real.
Okay, that sounds right.
Neither
sounds like the kind of thing Meatloaf would not believe in.
Stop it. Respect the dead. All right, everybody. Have a great evening.
Adios.